Hello, greetings and welcome. My name is Farrell D. Moore, and I'll be the host of this episode of Right, entitled Real Creative Juices. It's not what you're thinking, by the way. It's not sinful to taste the real secret of activating your creative juices. You are a writer, aren't you? You need your creative juices to flow. Creative juices are real. When you're in the writing zone, your biochemical balance isn't the same as someone who's tying their shoelaces. When you're in the creative mode, you're physically different. Your system is flooded with the real mix of creative juices. It's a mental game, say the writing courses and the workshops. It's all about theme, economy, character, arc, and so forth. Can't go wrong with them. Kind of like, as a writer, you're a factory worker assembling parts into an automobile. Sounded great when you were surrounded by all those other students, didn't it? And there was the teacher looking at you, waiting for you just to nod and smile. But wait. It's just when you get home and sat down to write that it hits you. There are no machines helping you to build your story. The other people in the class aren't there either. You're all alone. You sit in front of the computer. You want to write, but your mind is kind of empty. More like completely blank. Something doesn't feel right. You're not in the mood. Workshops lie. It's not just a mental game. There's a physical aspect that's as important as any trope or theme. It's your creative juices. If you don't attend to your personal physical chemistry and state, great writing just won't happen. At the workshop, and in all the books you've been reading, you're supposed to come up with a theme first. They gave you a list, or maybe a trope. They gave you a list of those too. And you even received a character trait assembly kit. Writing a really powerful story should be easy, if only your brain would cooperate. What if I told you that it helps to take care of your brain? What if I told you, and I was serious, that I would know a recipe to jumpstart your brain and help put you into the writing zone, and after that, you've got to unlock the key to creative writing. First, writers aren't factory workers, mindlessly assembling stories. We're creators, and we need our mind-body chemistry to be in high creative gear. Booze and drugs will burn out your brain. We don't need them. But we do need total stimulation. We need our systems to crank up their production of creative juices. Certain recipes will do that. Writers aren't supposed to know. If we did, we'd buy less books or writing and write some really good fiction. First, let's get the disclaimers out of the way. That would be the part where I say, this is what I do and why, and here are my experiences with this approach. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not giving you any medical advice. I'm not asking you to try these juices. I'm not asking your relatives or your children to try them. Is it safe to talk yet? No, I think I'd better go on a little bit with disclaimers. Okay, then I'm saying it outright. Don't any of you try this. You might be allergic to what's in this drink, so don't take it. The earth might be allergic to you drinking this. Ask your doctor for medical advice before doing this. Call the EPA and OSHA if you have any concerns it might hurt the environment, and you might even alert Homeland Security if you think drinking what I'm about to tell you might cause a mass panic. We're clear on this, right? Don't do this. I do it. Don't you do it. Any of you. What I do is take 1 teaspoon of cayenne pepper and dissolve it in a cup of very, very warm water. 1 hour before I sit down to write, I stir it up again to make sure everything is dissolved. Then I drink it pretty much straight down. Sometimes it takes me 2 or 3 gulps, but I like to get it over with all at once. Then I feel the heat. My blood starts to flow. My brain kicks in and asks, what the hell am I doing? So what am I doing, and why am I doing it? There's a reason for it, but we'll see if you can guess it first. Some writers think imagination is like the wind. It comes, it goes, And we never know for sure when it's going to do either. Right? It's like getting in your car and waiting for it to turn on all by itself. You'd be late for a lot of appointments if you went about it that way, wouldn't you? How about if you remembered to turn the key, but you never put any gas in the car? I hate to tell you this, but it still wouldn't start. Or maybe you let the air filter get gunked up with all sorts of crud, but then you remembered to turn the key in the ignition and you also put gas in it. It should still work, right? No, because it wouldn't get enough airflow to the engine. But wait, the brain is different. It's not a car. It's almost mystical. It's ethereal. It's not really connected to the body. It just hangs out in a writer's head, right? Well, no. Here's a few things to think about for those of you who want to look a little deeper into the creative process than most writers ever do. The brain needs a lot of things, but it really uses a lot of sugar. It needs blood flow. It really needs oxygen too. And I've got to admit it, sleep. Your brain won't work if you won't pay attention to those requirements at a bare minimum. How creative are you when you're dead dog tired? Remember all those stupid ideas for stories that sounded great until you re-examine them after a good night's sleep? And ask a diabetic how their brain works when their sugar is off. Here's two more. Try reducing the oxygen in the brain and see how you function, or maybe the blood flow. Wait, don't really do that. Do I have to throw in my disclaimer again about don't try this at home? Don't take me at my word, though. Ask Google. See what kind of results you get. Your imagination is part of your brain. Your brain is part of your body. When writers think about ways to improve their creativity, they never think about how they treat their physical brain. It's a very, very bad mistake. And the cayenne, it really gets my blood flowing. Blood carries oxygen and sugar to the brain. Your brain really likes that. A happy brain makes it a lot easier to be creative. Now the key, I believe, to being creative. What type of music do you listen to before you write? While you write? Charles Gramlich, PhD, could write a book about this topic. In fact, send any questions to him. But to get back to the point, why? Because music changes your body chemistry. It's the best way to kick in your creative juices. Very few people know that music changes your body chemistry. It changes your blood chemistry, your brain chemistry, and kicks your creative mind into gear. Some researchers believe it is a dopamine thing. The following study linked the feeling of chills in listeners to music that really got them going. The number of chills the participants got was correlated with the activation specifically in the nucleus accumbens, which suggests that the intense pleasure we got from them is due to dopamine signals in this area. The whole thing shows that music can produce a nice increase in dopamine in the nucleus accumbens. Whether that's a high is another question. They couldn't really quantify what kind of a signal they were getting from the dopamine, other than they got a significant change. Drugs like cocaine produce increases in dopamine in the nucleus accumbens of about 300% baseline, and drugs like meth can go even higher than that. Was intense pleasure when listening to music in the same category? Probably not, but that doesn't mean it sure didn't feel good. The whole study gives us a nice biological basis for our physical responses to music, but it also raises questions. Why have we evolved in such a way that music affects us this way? What is a function? Is it just enhancement of emotion? If so, how does that work? Is it familiarity of the music, knowing that a part you like is coming up? Does it have anything to do with the language that they sing in and the tones which we utilize in our voices for things like language? We don't have these answers yet, but maybe someday we will. Until then, when you're listening to some great music and get the chills, you know what's happening. Anatomically distinct dopamine released during anticipation and experience of peak emotion to music is a fact. That's taken from Nature's Neuroscience. But it begs the question, Can the pleasurable effects of music improve our creative writing? Can music help us be more imaginative? I believe it is absolutely the most effective method of ramping up the production of our creative juices. It's not just the pleasure, it's the beat. The beat gets us moving, gets us feeling, switches us over to that side of our brains that works with visual imagery. Now, some writers complain that music distracts them from writing. There's always a few. But when I write, the rest of the world disappears. I can feel music. I can feel my mind and my body kick into gear. And then I'm off to that other world. The world where my story is a measure of my reality. The world where I forget what time it is, what day and what month it is. Music can't distract from that. Stephen King uses music to get his creative juices going. In his book On the Craft of Writing, he even gives us an overview of what he listens to when he writes. He's still the king, no pun intended, of horror, and oddly enough, what he listens to seems to contribute to that. He doesn't listen to a lot of Frank Sinatra when he writes, believe me. And it's true. Music not only jumpstarts production of our creative juices, it can influence what type of writing we produce by influencing our brains. Considering the following excerpt from a paper by Greg McKay. A study done by physicist Dr. Harvey Bird from Fairleigh Dickinson University and neurobiologist Dr. Gervasia Schreckenberg from Georgian Court College in Lakewood, New Jersey. Dr. Bird is very interested in the effects of sound and music on our bodies. I subsequently got a chance to meet Dr. Bird and discuss his work and his theories. He and Dr. Schreckenberg had teamed up to study the effects of music on laboratory mice. They subjected one group of mice to incessant voodoo drum beats, one group to Strauss waltzes, and one group was kept in silence. The experiment used music played at low volume so that volume was not a cause for any behavioral changes observed. Over the period of the experiment, they tested the different groups to see how well they could run through a maze to get to their food. This was a measure of their cognitive ability, their ability to remember the maze over time. Now, Bird and Schreckenberg found a strange thing. They found that the group that listens to the voodoo music had a very difficult time with the maze that increased over time to the point where they were totally disoriented and unable to complete the maze. The other groups had no problem learning the maze, with an edge given to the mice listening to the waltz music. Even when the mice were given a break from the music for 3 weeks, the group that had previously listened to the voodoo music still could not remember how to get their food, while the others found it quickly with no problem, said Schreckenberg. Now, the moral of the story is very clear for someone trying to stimulate their creative juices. And that moral is, don't listen to voodoo music when you want to be creative. My name is Farrell D. Moore, and until next time, keep writing.